I'm Dr. James Duban. I'm the Associate Dean for Research and National Scholarships in TAMS and the Honors College. It's a pleasure to offer this 15-minute or so presentation to you today about opportunities for research in TAMS and the philosophy of education that research-based undergraduate education implies. Now, when TAMS students arrive on campus, they will learn about the different forms of structured research that are available. They will learn that there is, for example, a TAMS summer research scholarship for which they may compete. Entering students yearly compete now for what's called an early research scholarship. We have a year-long undergraduate research fellowship that is campus-wide, though TAMS students also compete for that. These are all things about which the students will learn on campus. So what I'd like to do in the little time that we have available today is to talk about both the utilitarian, as it were, and philosophical side of undergraduate research. And let me talk first about the philosophical and the educational side. Students are understandably so ambitious and so eager to enter into research environments that sometimes they overlook the main benefit of their doing so, the main goal, the big picture. And that big picture, when it comes to STEM research, is to, and this, it's not simply for TAMS students, this goes all the way up the line to the most esteemed professors and career scientists. It's to make new contributions to one's field of knowledge. It's stated otherwise, to contribute new knowledge to one's field. And that's a great thing, an absolutely great thing. And we want our TAMS students to keep that in mind. We want them to understand that rather than just having a new item for their resume, what they're doing when they're in somebody's lab is learning a comprehensive professional methodology. Students, through conventional coursework and even through hoped-for autonomous reading, may never arrive in their undergraduate years at a comprehensive methodology unless they engage in firsthand research under the guidance of a professor. Not that they are going to stick with that one methodology for a lifetime, but what they are going to learn is what I have heard referred to in literary circles called the discipline of the discipline. And they will learn what it means for a professor to have a methodology and to pursue that. As the student develops, he or she will eventually encounter other methodologies. Certainly in graduate school, they will encounter still more. And finally, they will acquire that disposition to work in a highly disciplined way to achieving that new contribution to their field of study. Now, there are other benefits as well that we want our students to keep in mind for research. And one of the main benefits is the social interaction that occurs in a lab setting. My colleagues in STEM assure me that in order for somebody to succeed in a lab setting, they have to have really good social skills. And this becomes a part of the holistic picture of what the research experience can provide during one's undergraduate years. There's also the advantage of being in a lab, pursuing ideas, and learning how to deal with failure. That so often brick walls appear. People have to go back to the proverbial drawing board. And it's a good thing that a student in a research lab, along with his or her colleagues, including the principal investigator, will discuss, okay, well, we just bumped into that brick wall. Where do we go from here? How do we circumvent it? How do we surmount it? And these are good, these are great life lessons. Now, at the same time, students who engage in research learn how to conduct literature reviews. They learn how to read existing studies. They are able to take the thesis that their professor is advancing, the hypothesis, and weigh that against existing knowledge. They can see what has been done before. They can see where the field of study is now in relation to where it has been in the past. And on the basis of such literature reviews, they can help contribute to the dialogue in a lab of where we need to go from here and what might be the best direction. So while students are reading existing studies, they're also learning an immense amount about how professionals in the field structure those, how they advance their hypothesis up front, how they distinguish between qualitative and quantitative measurements, how they footnote, and how they do their computations, illustrations, and finally, what does a really great concluding paragraph sound like? So now the student is developing as a writer, as a thinker, as a social being, and as somebody who's going to contribute to his or her field of study. So we want our students to keep in mind that big picture of personal development that we find reflected in research engagement. Now, that would be the pedagogical / philosophical / ideal end of why a student should pursue research in TAMS and beyond. Now let's talk about the utilitarian or pragmatic benefits of a student's doing so. Our TAMS students, you may have heard, lead the state of Texas, whether in private or public university competition, in the Barry M. Goldwater Scholarship Competition. This is the highest level of STEM competition for undergraduates in the country. And UNT, in large part because of TAMS, has a lifetime 66 scholars in a field where historically no university could nominate more than 4 students a year. So our students excel at that because a virtual prerequisite for nomination for the Goldwater Scholarship Competition is what kind of research experience has the student had? What was their contribution? To what degree can the principal investigator of the lab write a comprehensive letter of recommendation about them? Then there are other competitions that grow out of the preparation for the Goldwater. The Regeneron competition comes to mind, and our students historically do exceedingly well in that too. Now, when eventually our students are ready to go to graduate school, what they will discover, whether they complete their undergraduate education here at the University of North Texas on the TAMS to Eagle Scholarship, or whether our TAMS students decide to apply to other universities to complete their undergraduate education, they will find at the end of their bachelor's degrees that if they have taken advantage of research-based undergraduate education, either on our campus or on other campuses, that one day they will have a more valuable application to enter medical school. If they wish to go on to become research scientists without being medical practitioners, then when they apply to PhD programs, what they will find is that if they have a history of undergraduate research and they have mentors who, on the basis of that undergraduate research, are eager, not willing, are eager because of the performance of the student to write comprehensive letters of recommendation. And what's a comprehensive letter of recommendation? It's 1.5 to a maximum of 2 pages, single-spaced, with double spacing between paragraphs for ease of reading, in which a professor who has overseen research and the teaching of that student, perhaps in conventional courses, can keep writing because there's so much to talk about. There's the exemplary performance of the student in class. There's the contributions that the students made in the lab. And what the student will find on the basis of 3 to 4 years of undergraduate research is that the professors have that much more to say as the student applies either for nationally competitive scholarships, National Science Foundation, Graduate Research Fellowship, and the list goes on and on, Rhodes, Marshall, and so on. The professor simply has more to say. And relative to graduate school admission, what the student will eventually learn is that, just loosely considered, a PhD these days in STEM, depending on where a student earns that distinction, can cost anywhere between, let's just say, $200,000 and close to $500,000. And that the very best applicants to graduate school in the country, and any student listening to this should envision him or herself as being among those, that those very best students who have conducted research, made significant contributions in the undergraduate lab, have those stellar letters of recommendation. They will find that in all probability, not only do they gain admission to august PhD programs, and by a PhD program, I mean a master's degree rolled into ultimately the PhD. Not only do they gain admission, but they gain preemptive fellowship offers. And a university at the graduate level will say to them, we very much want you here to earn your combined master's and PhD, and we are willing to waive tuition, to waive fees. Oh yes, and by the way, it may cost $20,000 to $30,000 a year of out-of-pocket expenses for transportation, room, board. So we're going to throw that in. And perhaps we'll give you a split between 2 years of outright fellowship offers and 2 to 3 years of a combination of fellowship and teaching assistantship responsibilities. Either way, what we're talking about is a debt-free graduate education. And all of this has its foundation in the ideal undergraduate research-based education. And that is what we want you to pursue, starting in the Texas Academy of Mathematics and Science and well beyond. Well, thank you for having attended this session, and I look forward to meeting many of you during these various processes.